Every programming journey traditionally begins with a Hello World app to verify that the tools are properly installed and that you can build and debug. So let's do it. Here's a screenshot of the app we're going to build. We've got two labels right here, hello, and one that you can't see to display our result, a text box in which the user is going to type their name, and a button which takes the value from the text box, formats it, and puts the result into the second label. To start doing this, let's launch Visual Studio. Before we write any code, let's make a couple of quick changes to Visual Studio settings to make it easier to work with XAML files. First, we'll come up to the Tools menu and select Settings, Expert Settings, and then we'll come back to the Tools menu and select Options. Scroll down here to the text editor, select XAML, select Formatting, select Spacing, and select Position each attribute on a separate line, and make sure the Position first attribute on the same line as the Start tag is selected. And then we'll click OK. Now, to make a new project, we come over here and click on New Project, and the first thing we see is the collection of project templates for Windows Phone. For our Hello World app, we're going to select Windows Phone application template from the Silverlight for Windows Phone section under Visual C#. And we'll call it Hello World, and click OK. The next thing you see is the new Windows Phone application dialog. This allows you to select which target Windows Phone version your application is designed for. Only if you have an existing Windows Phone application in the marketplace and you know you have customers that have the original Windows Phone OS should you ever change this. Windows Phone OS 7.1, which was also codenamed Mango, is the Windows Phone operating system that is primarily out there in the marketplace right now, so every time we come through this dialog, we're simply going to click OK. Once the project opens, you'll see the designer here in the left pane and the XAML here in the right pane. In order to make it more properly formatted for our course, we've done two things. First, we've taken the Solution Explorer and clicked this little push pin so that it automatically hides itself. And then each time we do it, we're going to come over here and shrink down the visual of the phone in the designer surface and move this over here to the side so that we can more easily see the XAML section because that's where we're going to be doing most of our work. In order to make it easier to work with the XAML, we're going to click here in the XAML side of the designer, come up to the Edit menu, select Advanced, and Format Document. That makes each one of these attributes show up on a separate line, and it makes it much easier for us to see all of the attributes for each item in the screen. So the first thing we always do when creating a new app for Windows Phone is to set the application title and the page title. Microsoft has a collection of rules about what should be capitalized, how to punctuate sentences, and format on-screen text. We've included the full set of the rules as a downloadable free exercise file. As we build our application, the first thing we're going to do is set our application title, and the rules for that, it should be always uppercase. So here we're going to enter Hello World, and then we come to our page title, which should always be lowercase for every page, and here we're going to enter Welcome. And that's actually enough for us to try our first iteration, so let's press F5 and launch the app in the Windows Phone emulator. The Windows Phone emulator is a separate virtual machine unto itself, so sometimes you'll see it says Windows Phone emulator is doing a full boot. In this case, it just fires it up, shows the little splash screen, and here's our application. Once the emulator boots up, you can see also that Visual Studio switches into its debug configuration, and your app appears in the emulator on the screen. When the app launches, you'll see the app name and the page name and a small line of numbers running down the right-hand side of the simulated screen. These are diagnostic information which will only be displayed to you on your emulator or device while debugging, including frame rates and some other things regarding memory, which will help you optimize your application before you submit it to the marketplace. To exit your app, you can either click the back button or you can click the stop button in the Visual Studio debug toolbar over here. Right now, we'll click the back button and Visual Studio will stop. And now it's time to make our app actually do something meaningful. We need to add the app equivalent of reading text and writing it back out. You know, what every Hello World application you've ever written has done. Now, we're going to do this by adding some more stuff to the XAML, but we're going to be using the designer to do this. Microsoft started building XAML as an XML-based layout language nearly 10 years ago as a successor to Windows Forms, with the goal of creating a universal and adaptable layout tool for enterprise applications as well as browser-based applets. This was a big goal which eventually created a large and complex tool with many knobs and dials. In this course, we're going to stick with the essentials and use the visual layout tools provided by Visual Studio. When you're ready to dig deeper into XAML, you can take the Silverlight 3 Essentials course and the Silverlight 4 What's New courses here on lynda.com. So the way we do that is we're going to drag things from the toolbox into our designer. And we go and open the toolbox and we see, the toolbox is overlaying our entire designer. So we need to come back here and move this divider a little bit to the right so that the design surface is available to us. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drag a text block, which is XAML's name for a static label, onto the design surface. Now you can see we can only see a small portion of the design surface, but that doesn't make any difference because no matter where you drag things from the toolbar, it's simply going to drop them where you let them down, and then you use the mouse to position it where you want it. Now you can see here that there are some orange grid lines to show you essentially where is the right spot to put your content. You can't put your content all the way to the edge of the screen because there's a minimum size area where it can detect finger touches. And we're also going to zoom the designer a little bit bigger so that we can see exactly what we're doing. So now we're going to take this text block and make it the entire width of the screen. And then we're going to come back over here to the XAML side and adjust some of the properties. In this particular case, we're going to adjust the text attribute, which is what controls what text is being shown in there. And we're going to put in, hello, what's your name? And then we're going to add a text box where your user can type in their name into the app. So we're going to grab a text box. Again, doesn't matter where we drop it because the first thing we're going to do is put it where we want it. Follow those design grids again here, and you can see it automatically spreads to go the entire width of the screen. We're going to come down here on the XAML side and edit the text attribute again of the text box here and make that empty because you don't want to prompt the user and ask them if their name is text box. And then we're going to add another text block, which is where we're going to put our output, the equivalent of our console in the Hello World arena. And again, one more time, come down here, set the text attribute to empty. And finally, we're going to drag a button and position that roughly in the middle of the screen. And for buttons, the caption in a button is in the content attribute. And so here in this content attribute, we're going to say hello. Now, we've got all the controls we need on the screen. So now we need to write a little code in order to make the app actually do something. So the easiest way to do that is to double click on the button in order to be able to enter the code behind. So you'll see that Visual Studio automatically created a click handler, which is invoked when the user taps your button. So here we're going to enter text block 2, which is the second label we put on the screen, and set its text attribute to text box 1, which is the place where we typed in the name and its text attribute. And we're going to put a string greetings at the front of it. And we're going to put an exclamation point just to be friendly at the end. And now we're ready to go. So we're going to press F5. When your app starts, we're going to click in the text box and enter your name. And you can see when you click here, the software input panel or touch keyboard shows up on the screen. Now you can use this just like you would on a real device and tap out your name. And that can sometimes, especially if you're entering in user IDs and passwords and things as you're debugging, get somewhat time-consuming. So there's a feature in the emulator that allows you to use your hardware keyboard that's attached to your development system, but there's a couple of caveats with that. The way you do that is you press the page up key, and that engages the hardware keyboard to work with the emulator. And you can see up here it shows that we have an English United States keyboard attached. That can make it a little bit difficult to enter in letters with diacritical marks, so there's a trade-off between using the keyboard, especially if you're dealing with foreign language debugging, and using the software input panel. But for most text that you have to enter, the hardware keyboard is much more convenient. Now, in order to turn the hardware keyboard off, you press the page down key, and we could click here and continue to start entering things with our software keyboard. In this case, we'll touch page up, and I'll finish typing in my name. And now I'm going to click the Say Hello button, and you can see there we've taken the text from this text box, combined it with our format strings, and put it there into our second text block, making our app do Hello World. So now we have a clear example of being able to get information in, run some code, and get some information out. And that's it. You've built and run your first Windows Phone app. Our next step is to see how this app runs on an actual Windows Phone device. So we're going to then install the Zune software so we can connect up to a hardware device and see the same Hello World application running on an actual device.